You know Gray Bar for electrical parts, but there's one more thing you may not be thinking of us for that can help maximize your next project's total value. Our pre-project planning services are designed to help you win the bid, save on labor costs, and keep your installers productive across your entire build. The sooner you call us, the better. Because when we're there from the beginning, we can anticipate your needs and help you solve problems before they become problems. Yep, Gray Bar does that.
Calm and mild week around the baseball world, and with that, we'll say goodbye on this week's episode of the show. Wait a minute. No, that's not true at all. Hey, welcome into the latest episode of the Show Before the Show podcast, the official podcast of minor league baseball. My name is Tyler Maughan, the sleep-deprived Sam Dykstra in New York City after basically working from sunup until sunup the next day on MLB Trade Deadline stuff. How you doing, buddy?
Hanging in best I can. Yeah, it was a very long day on Thursday. It was a very long day on Wednesday when Eugenio Suarez is getting traded at any hour of the night. And it's like, all right, well, you got to jump into action on that. And then finding out that, teams trading on the West Coast don't, respect East Coast hours at night and don't respect West Coast hours in the morning.
That was the most East Coast biased sports writer thing I've ever heard from you.
No.
Why are they making these trades when it's late for us?
Well, not only that, but like, we'll get to this in a second. When the Mason Miller trade is going down at 11:30 Eastern on Thursday, that's 8:30 East or Pacific Coast time. Like, I can only imagine being AJ Cassavell, our Padres. I can only imagine being him in many ways today. That must have been a harebrained day for him.
Yeah.
But like waking up to finding out your team's top prospect is being traded at 8:30 in the morning. These guys are at it at all hours. The deadline was at 6 p.m., which means that there is a ticking clock and no second can be wasted. So even after 6 p.m., we were still learning about trades, and we're backfilling here at MLB Pipeline. It's a crazy day.
It was a wild deadline, and it just sort of had the feeling, even from a couple of weeks ago, that it was going to be a crazy deadline. And then for a while, like, it was kind of calm. Then just everything erupted this week. So we have a lot to get to on this week's episode of the Show Before the Show podcast. If you have any thoughts, any questions, any comments, anything you would like Sam to talk about as it pertains to your team, prospects acquired, players traded away, whatever it is, you can get in touch with us, of course, podcast@milb.com. We'll hear from Benjamin Hill a little while later. He is on the road. But Sam, this is the Sam Trade Deadline breakdown show today because there is so much to discuss. And, we got amazing headlines all over the place. Sam, if there was a thing that you could point to as the biggest story of the day yesterday, we're recording this on Friday, of course, from terms of, what we talk about with prospects and all of that, would it be Leo DeVries to the A's? Would it be the Twins selling off everybody and acquiring a bunch of prospects? Like, what is the headline of yesterday for you?
Well, it's tough, right? Because I live in many worlds, as it were. Because in the larger baseball world, I think people are waking up and being like, "Wait, how many players did the Twins?
The Twins have a 40% different roster today than they did yesterday morning." What?
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of guys going from St. Paul to Minnesota in terms of rosters. So that I think that's going to be a takeaway for a lot of people. I think the fact that a lot of relievers changed hands is going to be a theme for a lot of people, and just the prices on relievers, like just rentals. That I think shocked some people. But again, we've seen how important relievers can be in the postseason. And if you have good ones, if you have a loaded bullpen, which now the New York Mets do, the San Diego Padres had arguably the best bullpen in baseball, and now they've gotten even better. They've increased their odds of like, hey, if we're against the Dodgers and it's arm for arm, we have more arms than they do. I think that's going to be a big takeaway for some. Seeing some guys not get traded, like Stephen Kwan staying, I think is a big storyline. Carlos Correa, we talked about the Twins, but like he's an Astro now, which it feels like in another universe would be the big blockbuster story of this. And in this one, it kind of gets swept under the rug because it's essentially the Twins just almost selling him off. Just like, hey, here's your massive contract. The Astros are going to take it. We're going to send.
And he
some
waived
money.
his no trade clause to go back to Houston. And he switched positions.
Yeah. If only we had an image of what Carlos Correa looks like in an Astros uniform. If I was good enough at Photoshop,
we could look into the future all the
We could
way
look
to
into
the
the
year
future.
2000. That ordinarily would have been the big headline. And instead, that was just kind of like, that was a headline, but it wasn't like the biggest thing of the day. And obviously, with the money changing hands, also it changes the dynamic of that deal in terms of what goes in the return from Houston to Minnesota.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they didn't get a top 30 prospect back for that trade. I mean, I know Jim Callis does our Astros list, and he was panicking, as many of us were panicking in many ways in the afternoon, of like, who am I going to have to replace? Who do I have to add to the list? Whatever. And just having that looming over everybody of like, well, Carlos Correa is going from the Twins to the Astros. What kind of return is he going to get? And then it finds out that it's mostly just the contract that's moving. I think it was fascinating. But yeah, not a lot of starters going. Shane Bieber going from Cleveland to Toronto, that's notable. Insert your own Bieber's back in Canada joke here. But there were some big names that didn't get moved. Joe Ryan remains a Minnesota Twin. I know a lot of people in Boston in particular were hoping he would move. He remains. Stephen Kwan, who I mentioned before, remains in Cleveland. There were a lot of rumblings that he could be on the move. Jarren Duran didn't get moved by the Red Sox. He stays in Boston as well. But I don't think many people had Mason Miller definitely going. I thought if it's going to happen, it's going to take a massive haul. The Padres, who we know love taking big swings, AJ Preller loves ruining my life personally, as the guy who does the Padres list.
Either him or Jerry Dipoto. They're going to go after us one way or another.
One way or another. I don't have the Mariners list, so Jonathan Mayo does. So he was like getting worried about how many replacements he was going to do. And then he reached out to me in the middle of yesterday when the Padres were acquiring Ramon Laureano from the Orioles. And it was, as well as Ryan O'Hearn. And just hearing that it was going to be like 5 or 6 prospects going the other way. And he's just like, I will never complain to you ever again. Including a guy in Victor Figueroa, who I had just written up to be a Padres replacement. So I was like, okay, he goes on the list. No, he's off. He's off to Baltimore, which is a sign that, like, I wrote up the right guy, that he's a desirable prospect, but at the same time, frustrating. But yeah, I think that's the big takeaway of the day is like, we didn't see Mason Miller going. The fact that he ended up going so early in the day. And if you live in the world of prospects, which I said I live in many worlds, that's my primary residence, I would say, finding out Leo DeVries, who is the number 3 overall prospect in baseball. And that's not really going to change, by the way. Like, we will put out an update. He may be in like the 3 to 5 range, but he's not moving. He is one of the absolute 5 best prospects in baseball, a guy who could be a 5-tool superstar at shortstop. Even if he has to move to second or third, I think he's still going to be really good. He's a switch hitter. He's 18 at high A already. And he gets traded for a reliever and JP Sears. Now, Mason Miller, rarely, if ever, outside of like Aroldis Chapman, ever seen a guy who can throw that hard. And he's controllable, right? That is not available very often.
Not a free agent until 2029.
Yeah, that is not available very often. So I get it. The Padres have not gotten over that hill. They haven't even gotten to the World Series since they played the Yankees. In what year was that? 2000?
1998.
1998.
Yeah, that was the 114 win Yankees team.
Yeah, so it's been a long time, and you have to be aggressive. I get it. Flags fly forever. Like, if I was a Padres fan today, I know some of them are upset by losing DeVries. I'd be excited for, like, hey, we're going for this, man. Like, I think they were the better team than the Dodgers last year in that series. They just, they ran out of time, which happens in a postseason format. But now you got enough arms. They kept Dylan Cease. They kept Robert Suarez. They're firing on all cylinders. They're trying to give their team the best chance to win in 2025. And by Miller sticking around, Suarez probably opting out in the offseason, there's your closer for the next few years. Ride it, Nick, as long as he stays healthy. So I get that to some degree, but like Leo DeVries is on the short list for the best prospect ever traded. You look at his numbers at high A. I know they don't jump off the page, but it's rare air for a guy who's that young. He was young last year, jumping over the complexes completely, going to Lake Elsinore. They moved him aggressively to Fort Wayne again this year. This is what the Padres do, but DeVries was worthy of it. Like I said before, switch hitter. He used to be stronger from the right side. Now he's stronger from the left side in terms of slugging. I think that's just getting more opportunities from that. It's a really strong throwing arm. The athleticism could work anywhere on the infield. I'm really interested to see what he becomes in that A's system. Now it's on them. Like the Padres were always going to be aggressive with him. Do the A's treat him with more kid gloves? Maybe, like, if looking at his year this year, do they send him back to Lansing at high A for next year and just be like, let's make sure you really dominate this level before we push you? Or do they keep him on that track? Fascinating to see. But the A system, a heck of a lot better now than it was 36 hours ago. And I was saying this earlier to Jonathan and Jim. Gage Jump, I like Gage Jump a lot. He's a top 100 prospect, no doubt about that. But he was their top prospect. And I'm like, I don't know if he's should be the top prospect in a system that wants to be built around homegrown talent. Leo DeVries looks a whole lot better there at number one for the A's.
All right, Sam. That one obviously a massive deal. I mean, that was the one where my jaw sort of hit the floor when I was like, wait a minute, Mason Miller is going to San Diego now? That felt like sort of the big firing salvo of the actual trade deadline day. But there was a lot of movement elsewhere. And there were a lot of big sellers. I mean, the Twins, obviously, we've talked about. The A's, the D-backs made some sales. The Guardians made some sales. They obviously are in a very difficult spot right now with the investigations into Emmanuel Clase, the bullpen members. And so it turned from a circumstance in which the Guardians potentially were going to be buyers to try to make a run at the Tigers, who have stumbled since the trade deadline. And instead, full-on sellers. They flipped Shane Bieber. They were dangling Stephen Kwan at one time. The D-backs partnering with the Mariners on a couple of different deals, Josh Naylor and Eugenio Suarez. By the way, there is a phenomenal story by Daniel Kramer on .com today, on MLB.com, about the Mariners coordinating to wait for Eugenio Suarez essentially on the tarmac in Sacramento. He was flying in with the D-backs. He actually was flying separately from the D-backs. He was with his wife and his little girls. So he was flying in for a D-back series in Sacramento. The Mariners were leaving Sacramento, and they basically were able to time it out. The Mariners had to sit on the tarmac and wait a little while, but Suarez came and joined them with his family on the flight. And it's an awesome story. I don't want to give too much more away about that story, but it is great. And go read that at MLB.com. But what are some of the other, reshaped systems that you're excited about right now? The Twins get a lot. The D-backs get a lot. The Pirates obviously made their deals. Ke'Bryan Hayes goes out from Pittsburgh. What are some of the other headliners among teams? The Pirates also deal away David Bednar. They deal away, some from that pitching depth. The Orioles are dealing away guys. Ryan O'Hearn and Ramon Laureano head to San Diego. What is on that next tier for you?
Yeah, I mean, I guess we should get into more of how the Twins have changed their farm system, right? Like we talked about them moving a bunch of guys away, but I think they are also a remade system this morning, which, if you're sitting in the Twin Cities right now, a little worried about how things look in the immediate future, I think go over to the Twins prospect page. I mean, Jonathan Mayo wrote this piece about MLB clubs with the biggest hauls at the trade deadline. He put the A's first because getting DeVries and getting the other guys who didn't mention in that Mason Miller deal, Braden Nett, Eduardo Nunez. That's a pretty solid base for the A's, but he put the Twins at 2. There are 6 new prospects on their top 30. They got 10 prospects overall coming back. They were the only team to get 2 top 100 prospects, and Eduardo Tait and Mick Abel from Minnesota, or no, they got them from Philadelphia, in the Yohan Duran trade. So, we were talking before about Mason Miller and getting a closer. That's what Dave Dombrowski does too, right? Like he's a guy who knows how to win World Series and is willing to trade away prospects if he thinks it's going to increase his odds. And he does that here with Taiit and Abel. I'm sure there were teams asking about Andrew Painter. They decided to hold on to Andrew Painter. They were pretty clear about that throughout. Of Painter's the guy we hold on to. Other guys are maybe a little bit more negotiable. So they end up going with Taiit and Abel. Taiit is a catcher who just hits rockets from the left side. I mean, it's really special power already. And he's going to be a work in progress behind the plate, but he's got a strong arm. Another one of those guys that's like probably was too good of a hitter for single A, but needed to catch up on the catching side. They eventually pushed him to high A. Now he's moving there with the Twins. And Mick Abel, somebody who had ridden a roller coaster since he was a first round pick of like, oh, the stuff is there. The stuff is there. We really like the promise. And he's got tons of size. So it's easier to project him. I think he's 6'5". Like, you could see this guy becoming at least a mid-rotation starter, and then it kind of crashing the last few years. And now it built back up this year with velocity up a little bit. There was a start earlier this year in which he outdueled Paul Skeens. I know he's been inconsistent at the major league level, and there's some concern that he's tipping his pitches. But like this, the fastball is good. The slider and the curveball are coming along, depending on the day. One might be ahead of the other. So getting Mick Abel and Eduardo Taiit, those are your two headliners for the Twins. I really like Kendry Rojas from the Blue Jays, who they got in the Louis Varland, Ty France deal. Kendry Rojas, I do the Jays list, and I had an initial version, and I was told, hey, keep pushing Rojas up. Like, we like this guy a lot. Another guy who's picked up some velocity, good breaking ball, good split change, but he just needs to be healthy. He's had shoulder problems in the past. He had an abdominal strain earlier in this year. I think if he was somebody who was regularly putting up 100, 120 innings, he would be a top 100 prospect. He just isn't there yet. So he's kind of in that sweet spot for the Blue Jays to trade him, right? Like, you get him where everybody's seen him really well, just got to AAA at only 22 years old. But on the other hand, if he's not healthy, then you didn't trade anybody who's really going to impact you in the future. So now it's on the Twins to make sure that he stays on the mound moving forward. Would not shock me at all if he made a major league debut later this year. I think that's where his momentum is going. And like we said earlier, the Twins need help, all the help they can get. So I know Joe Ryan's not gone, but like there might be a time where they need an arm up, and Kendry Rojas will be right there at AAA. So it would not shock me at all if he debuts at some point this year. It's a better system for the Twins than it was a day ago. Is this like completely remade? No, I honestly think like the Orioles are a little bit even more completely remade with some of the deals that they pulled off. And they needed it. Like, this is a system that really could have used a lot more depth. It doesn't, outside of Samuel Basallo, it lacks ceiling for sure. And they didn't get much back. But Boston Bateman, 6'8" lefty from the Padres, and the Ryan Hearn Ramon Laureano deal. He's now number 6 in that system. I could see him as somebody who touches triple digits at some point. He's got a really good slider. It was like more of a curveball. He throws both still, but is a curveball in high school. Now it's the slider. He's worked on a changeup to round out the arsenal. That could be really interesting. Warren Watts-Brown, who is somebody that the Blue Jays the Blue Jays sent to Baltimore for Sir Anthony Dominguez. He was kind of a pop-up name. The Blue Jays have done a really good job at improving their pitching pipeline this year. Good breaking pitches. We'll see if he's more of a starter or reliever moving forward. I know there's some concern on that. It's the slider that really gets me excited. But again, another guy you ship out when his arrow is still up. So good job by Toronto of getting as much as they could out of Watts-Brown. And yeah, this Orioles system, we haven't added the draft picks yet, and they had maybe the deepest draft class this year just because they had such a large pool and so many picks. But it's significantly better than it was. Now, that's cold comfort to Baltimore fans. Like, you hoped you were going to make the World Series this year. Like, this was supposed to be the year where things turned around. And it just didn't happen. And I continue to point back to the offseason, right? Like, they didn't make the right acquisitions to help out.
Charlie Morton wasn't the thing that set him over the top. That wasn't
the big Charlie Morton now with the Detroit Tigers, by
right?
Like,
yeah, ended up being a tradable asset somehow.
Yeah, he got back minor league left-handed reliever in Mike Ashman. He's pretty funky, but not a huge return for Charlie Morton. But yeah, I mean they had a whole bunch of 4s and 5s when you needed at least a 2 in there, right? Like you're trying to replace Corbin Burns, and it didn't happen. I know they've had injuries and things have crumbled in that way, but Orioles are a deeper system today than they were yesterday, which I think is notable. And what do they do with that depth is still to be seen. Like now you have these guys, you have to actually develop them. Boston Bateman isn't the top pitching prospect in their system, but he's the best left-handed pitching prospect in their system. So now he's still at single A. He's only 19 years old. It's on you now to get the most out of him. Are the Orioles going to do that or be able to do that? We'll see. And I'll be interested to maybe they turn some of this prospect capital into a trade in the offseason. Like they should not be less aggressive just because this was a down year. Like you have to make the most out of the peaks of Gunnar Henderson. And I know Adley Rutschman's been hurt, but like he's still somebody you build around. Jackson Holiday slowly building better and better. We'll see what Baltimore can put together. This was a step, a difficult step, but a step they probably had to take.
All right, Sam, this trade deadline obviously went without some moves, as all trade deadlines do. Is there anybody that wakes up Friday morning that you are shocked to see is still in a specific organization? I'm talking, we talked a lot about the potential for Harry Ford to go somewhere. The Seattle Mariners catcher, obviously blocked at the big league level right now by a budding legend in Cal Raleigh. Harry Ford remains in a Mariners uniform. Ethan Salas remains with the San Diego Padres. There is the potential there that if the Padres were going to swing another big deal, he could be the prize piece. But sometimes those guys are just simply untouchable prospects. Who is along those lines of guys who stuck in systems that maybe you did not expect to still be there today?
Yeah, I mean, I think Harry Ford is a great example. I think certainly when we were talking about it last week, Eugenio Suarez being on the market, it seemed like he was going to be the big bat and bring back the biggest package. And listen, I like Tyler Locklear. The guy hits for power. He's done an even better job this year of doing that. And everything points to him being able to just like slot in at first base and fill that hole left by Josh Naylor, who also went from Arizona to Seattle. But I thought they would have had to trade at least a top 100 prospect. And like Locklear, you could maybe put him in the conversation, but he's a righty first baseman repeating AAA. Like I wouldn't have him there yet. So I thought there would have been a different headliner in that deal if you're looking at the Seattle system. So I think Seattle did pretty well to hold on to the guys that they did. And their abundance of top 100 prospects, which is 8 right now, all still in the system. We talked a lot last week about the Chicago Cubs, right? Like we thought the Cubs would be an aggressive team and trying to move away from not necessarily like shopping these guys actively, but Owen Casey, Moises Ballesteros, Kevin Alcantara. Those are top 100 prospects at AAA right now. Owen Casey most definitely blocked in the current version of the Chicago outfield. Now, if they lose Kyle Tucker, okay, sure, you slot him in right field next year and you maybe keep on trucking. Kevin Alcantara certainly blocked right now. His best value is up the middle. He's not unseating Pete Crow Armstrong anytime soon. And Ballesteros, there are still serious questions of like, can this guy catch? And if he can't catch, he's 5'8" and doesn't exactly make for a great first baseman. So he might just be a DH. It's very possible the Cubs value these guys more than other teams. And the Cubs are like, we'll give you Owen Casey, but we want something significant back. And the other teams will be like, well, actually, we don't see Owen Casey as a headliner here for us. We're going to go elsewhere. That's certainly possible. I get it. All of these guys have, bugaboos. Like Kevin Alcantara, is he ever going to truly hit enough? Owen Casey, yeah, the power is there, but he's still somebody who strikes out at a good amount at a good clip and has been at AAA for over 200 games now. Hasn't broken through yet. So I get that. I just thought if you're the Cubs, I thought this would have been the year to be aggressive while you still have Kyle Tucker. And maybe if it takes, in their eyes, overpaying for a return, you do it anyways because you want to make the most of this year. Now it's interesting that happens at the same time. Milwaukee Brewers didn't make any significant swings themselves. They didn't move any of their really, really big name prospects. So those guys are kind of good with what they have, I guess. And that's fine. Sometimes the Brewers love the depth of their system. They certainly value their big names appropriately. They love Jesus Made. They love Luis Pena. They love Cooper Pratt. It would take a lot for those guys to move. And I don't think there were the places they were going to get better, like at shortstop, maybe. I don't think there was a big name shortstop out there to be had that would make them better. Like Carlos Correa, I don't think they were going to take on all that money just to bring in Carlos Correa, in the way that Houston, obviously there's a connection there. So they kind of stand pat too. The NL Central race is going to continue basically as is. But yeah, those are some of the prospects or teams with prospects that I thought would have maybe taken bigger swings. Like the Padres, all the talk was them moving Dylan Cease or Suarez to acquire prospect capital that they could then use in other deals. And they didn't even do that. They just like emptied the clip and just like, well, you know what? We'll figure it out later. Like we'll develop the guys we have. That's what they do. They turn guys like Braden Nett and Eduardo Nunez into attractive pieces in other deals. And that's just the way the wheel keeps on turning in San Diego.
So we are set for a very fun final couple of months of the regular season and the pursuit of the postseason across Major League Baseball, where we've got all kinds of fun and interesting races that are currently in progress and heating up and getting more dramatic and all the rest. Sam, anything else that is lingering in the brain of Sam Dykstra that you want to get out there on deadline analysis day?
In the 2 brain cells I have left. No, I will say this, and this is going to be a little navel-gazing, but I just want to shout out everybody who works here at Pipeline on deadline day. It is a machine. It is insane what happens here at MLB.com widely. I mean, the amount of people sharing information and talking to each other and coordinating, making sure all these trades are accurate and out to the people, and that you are learning exactly who's moving and what prospects are going, where they slot into their new top 30s, actually doing that behind the scenes. Because Jim, Jonathan, and I just saying like, okay, this guy's the number 17. Somebody else has to do that. So shout out to everybody here at Pipeline who makes the wheels turn. It's a crazy day. I think with some separation, I can say it's a fun day. We'll see.
We'll ask you a month from now.
Yeah, it's a fun day for baseball.
Yeah.
It's a crazy day for us when you find out that the Orioles are trading or are acquiring 5 or 6 Padres prospects in one deal, and you are the person who now has to track down new Padres prospects and write up new blurbs. It can lead to a panic and a slight mental breakdown, but it is good for the sport. It keeps things moving. It keeps things interesting. And thanks to everybody who puts in hard work for Pipeline, for MLB.com, and gets you guys this information as best we can.
And it's pretty fun for those of us who just get to sit and watch it on MLB Network. Sorry.
I got to say, I do miss the days of. I remember one summer during my painting job. I was working all day, and I think this is back when the deadline was at 4:00, not 6:00. And I just got back in my car and turned on sports radio and found out what happened.
Every move that had happened. Yeah.
And it was like, oh, the Red Sox got Eric Gagne. And I'm like, that's cool.
Remember the days when you used to have to just like watch the bottom line, like the ticker on the 4-letter network? Like that was the way that you came across all the deals back in the day.
That's how I found out Nomar Garciaparra got it traded to the Cubs.
Yeah.
It was not. We certainly didn't have Twitter. We didn't have phones in our pockets.
Yeah.
It was a little thing on ESPN News that like flashed in the bottom left corner.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, what?
Yeah. Those are wild times. It was wild, man. Yeah. You kids don't even know. All right, Sam, we're going to step aside. We will visit, we'll hear from Benjamin Hill, a monologue from Ben on the road on the way. And then Sam and I are back. We've got some other news as it pertains to minor league baseball. We'll remember a dude. We won't name a dude, but we'll remember a dude. And all of that is ahead on this week's episode of the Show Before the Show.
Hello, it's Ben Hill, Ben's Biz in some circles. I'm at the Dallas airport in front of a restaurant called Nowitzki, as in Dirk. They should just call it Dirk's. That sounds like a fun dive bar. But I can hear coming out of Nowitzki, they're playing The Waiting is the Hardest Part by Tom Petty. And that applies to my situation right now because I've been in Dallas, Fort Worth for hours. I had a connecting flight here that got canceled, and I'm waiting for the flight that I was rescheduled on. And I still have hours to go until I get on that flight back home to New York City here on July 31st, 2025. This trip started in Salt Lake City, or at least near Salt Lake City, to see the Salt Lake Bees that are at their new ballpark, the ballpark at America First Square. It's in a planned community called Daybreak, which is located in South Jordan, Utah. So it doesn't have the city feel to it, really. It has a planned community feel. A lot of new structures, a lot being built as we speak. The ballpark's kind of the centerpiece of America First Square, which has a movie theater and family fun center and concert stage and restaurants and stores on the way and all that kind of thing. To me, it's quite analogous to Vegas, how you have the aviators in the planned community of Summerlin away from the city proper. And like Vegas, it's kind of like a mini Major League Stadium in that, you know, a lot of higher end amenities, really classy environment, but not so much of the real fun, goofy, quirky minor league spirit either. Beautiful place to see a game. You've got the mountain views as you'd expect in that region that are, you know, spectacular. The Wasatch Mountains, and also the Ochre Mountain Range down the first base side. So that's always going to be one of the highlights of the Salt Lake ballpark. Some really incredible suites if you ever get a chance to see a game in a suite there, including field level suites that are right on top of the action. It would be such a cool place to see the game in these suites that are closer to home plate than the pitcher is. They also have sections of like movie theater style seats in the seating bowl. You know, they're like kind of reclining deluxe movie theater seats. So that's pretty cool. They got a putting green, like a kind of, it's like mini golf, but not really mini golf, just a series of different putting greens on the left field side of the stadium. Really good food. Shout out to Chef Love and Dom, who hooked up my designated eater, Morgan, very, very nicely. Brisket and mac and cheese, I remember, as being one of the highlights. They did bring over the All-Star Dog from Smith's Ballpark, their old home, if you're into that kind of thing, or if you're into that classic item. It was really messy. Had a lot of cheese on it. I forget some of the specifics. The waiting is the hardest part, as they say, here from the Dallas airport. But where else did I go? I took a travel day from Salt Lake, because Salt Lake City is very far away from other minor league baseball locations. Stopped in Twin Falls, Idaho on Sunday night after seeing a Bees day game, and it was great. Got to see the Snake River Canyon. Tried to imagine Evel Knievel jumping over it back in the day, but beautiful natural environments there. Good stopping point. Big long drive the rest of the way on Monday to the Tri-Cities, Kennewick, Pasco, and Richland, Washington State. And I was at the Tri-City Dust Devils game on Tuesday, and you can blame or credit Eric Mertens, Eric the Peanut Guy, for this, but he made it into Ben Hill night. So it was a little awkward. I felt a little embarrassed, but it was also an honor and a lot of fun to have a theme night in my honor. There was some surprises, some between inning contests themed around me and things that are known about me and my personality or appearance. There were t-shirts that I did not know were going to be there, but pretty limited run of the Ben Hill night t-shirts. But at one point in the game, I think it was after I threw out a first pitch, I look over down the first base side of the ballpark and I see a guy wearing a shirt with like my face on it. And at first I thought it was just one guy who's a big fan of mine. Then I look around and like all these other people are wearing the shirt too. Then I realized the team had given them away to certain sections of the ballpark. But it was a really warm and friendly night, and it was nice to be back in Pasco, Washington, to see the Tri-City Dust Devils at Giesa Stadium. Very bare bones ballpark by 21st century minor league standards, but a real sense of community, very friendly. You've got Eric, the Peanut Guy, leading the charge down there, and had a great time. And then spent last night in Spokane, a Vista Stadium. Hadn't been there since 2016, and what a spectacular ballpark. Great front office staff, great environment. That ballpark was built in 1958. I've got to start remembering to just mention that ballpark among my favorites as one to recommend other people to go to, because there's so much history, personality, color. Shout out to the whole front office, especially Bud Barather. I think I'm saying your name right, Bud. Bud Barather? Barather? Bud. Hey, Bud. Bud Barather. I'm going to call him Barather. Anyway, really helped me out through the night, just showing me around the ballpark, put me in situations I hadn't been in ballparks before, including sorting compost for an inning or two, because they're a zero waste facility, so all the trash gets manually sorted every night. And so I put on some gloves and sorted the trash, compost, recycling, just flat out garbage, irredeemable garbage. So got to do that. Got to dress up as a minnow as part of the Red Band rally. They got Ribby, the trout mascot, tied into their conservation efforts and working with the local Spokane tribe. They still have the Salish language script all over the ballpark, the language of the Spokane Indians, who the team is named for. And what else? It was just a beautiful night. I talked to a lot of people. I saw a lot of things. I'm sorry this is not a more coherent recap of the trip. I just wanted to get something for all of you loyal Show Before the Show listeners out there, just to say, hey, I'm Ben and I'm here. Don't let Sam and Tyler hog this whole podcast. I've got something to say. But this is like my 5th attempt even trying to do just this. I'm exhausted, a little loopy, and like Tom Petty said, the waiting is the hardest part. I'll get more into this road trip next week and in the coming weeks. And hey, next week, August 6th, I'm going to Altoona Curve's Awful Night. I need to get home from this trip before I go somewhere else. I'm exhausted. But looking forward to all that. And finally, shout out Braden Botts, an MLB live content coordinator, LCC. He was with me on my last trip. He was with me on this one. He's like my travel buddy now all of a sudden. It's been great being on the road with somebody, having him do additional photos and video. And he's a young kid in his early 20s. I'm more than twice his age. I like this grizzled veteran and hotshot rookie dynamic we have going on the road. And he's been getting a lot of great video and pictures. And it's been a fun new wrinkle to my road trips to not be solo all the time. Although there's something to be said for being solo. I'm used to it. Lone Wolf, Ben's Biz, hang out in front of Nowitzki's, Dallas-Fort Worth Airport. Over and out for now. Thank you for listening. I hope this wasn't too rambling and unbearable. And thank you for listening to the podcast and just engaging with what we do. I really appreciate you.
Does it ever feel like you're a marketing professional just speaking into the void? But with LinkedIn ads, you can know you're reaching the right decision makers, a network of 130 million of them, in fact. You can even target buyers by job title, industry, company, seniority, skills, and did I say job title? See how you can avoid the void and reach the right buyers with LinkedIn ads. Spend $250 on your first campaign and get a free $250 credit for the next one. Get started at linkedin.com/campaign. Terms and conditions apply.
Saying goodbye on this week's episode of the Show Before the Show. Big thanks to Ben Hill for checking in from the road. We do have one more item, which actually just broke moments ago. And that is a change in the minor league structure of the Baltimore Orioles. Over the last few years, there have been rumblings that the Aberdeen Ironbirds might be headed out of the affiliated ranks, and that appears to be the case going forward. The Ironbirds are out. They will still have baseball in Aberdeen. It looks like it will be an MLB Draft League club, and it looks like it will be an MLB Draft League club because a formerly affiliated Orioles farm system stop will be back in the fold, and that is Frederick, Maryland, the home of the Frederick Keys, where they have been undergoing a nearly $40 million renovation to Harry Grove Stadium over the last few years. I loved Harry Grove Stadium, got to stop through there a lot in the Carolina League, and it certainly was a place that needed some love, needed some upgrades, and it will be getting those. It is in the process of getting those. They actually broke ground on that on May 14th. And so it's going to be a completely revamped and new look Frederick Ballpark there. And the Keys will be back as the high A affiliate of the Baltimore Orioles. Sam, obviously shuffling happens in minor league systems. We see it so much less now with the 10-year PDC agreements. But, this was a situation that was Aberdeen was in a rough spot. The city and the franchise had been kind of at odds for a little while. And this seems as though it solves some issues on both sides. And for Frederick, that's a community that loves that team. And it's pretty cool to see that they'll be back in the affiliated fold.
Yeah, I mean, this is trading one minor league city for another. And again, I want to stress, as somebody who's seen the MLB Draft League take off in places like Trenton, that it is a different type of baseball. It's a different brand, essentially, but it's still quality baseball that will be played in Aberdeen. So I'm happy to see that it's not going completely away from the baseball structure. Adding Frederick is just, somebody who we thought we had lost. And again, they went to the MLB Draft League themselves. So they technically were still around. Every once in a while, I'll be looking around for stats on a draft guy. Found out he played in Frederick. That happens. Now we're just going to do that with Aberdeen. But it's not going to be that different for us, I don't think. And because it's just like, oh, that Frederick, we get it. Like, they've been around. I'll be interested to see what these renovations are, because that's a huge thing now when minor league cities get a team or teams move, is like, are the facilities going to be up to snuff? A lot has to be going into this to make sure that they are correct for player development, for fans, for all those things. So we'll see what the Keys are going to look like, but it's coming in 2026, so we're going to find out very quickly.
All right, Sam. Well, before we get out of here, it is time for not a full edition of Name That Dude, but we're going to remember a dude, because there's only two of us here, and we only remember dudes when the three of us are not together. And we got a Name That Dude suggestion from friend of the show and friend to many of you as well on the internets and on the baseball social medias. You might know him. You probably know him more as Old Fort Baseball Company. But Logan, I believe Logan's last name is Weaning. Logan, if it's whining, I'm really sorry that I butchered it. But Logan, who runs Old Fort Baseball Company, amazing T-shirts and hats and stuff out of Fort Wayne, Indiana. Logan sent in a name and sent it to the podcast email address. So I think we all saw it, which means he goes from a Name That Dude suggestion to a perfect Remembering That Dude suggestion. And this player is Tony Womack. Tony Womack, like one of those guys who just like a mid-2000s stud. And it sort of surprises me to look back at Tony Womack's career and realize, like, oh no, he wasn't like a 6-time All-Star. You just felt like Tony Womack was always in the mix or something. He made one All-Star game, 1997. Between 1997, 1998, and 1999, he stole 200 bases, 60 in 97, 58 in 98, and then 72 in 1999. It's almost 200 stolen bases. What is that? 190 stolen bases in 3 seasons. 363 of those for his career. Tony Womack, who I also only think of as an Arizona Diamondback, actually spent just as much time with the Pittsburgh Pirates as he did with the D-backs. Now, not in terms of games played, but in terms of years in that organization at the major league level. That was where he started his big league career. He was drafted by the Pirates in the 7th round of the 1991 draft. Still just 55 years old, by the way, Tony Womack. But then, yeah, I always think of him with the D-backs, and he was only on the D-backs from 99 until 03. Then a very short stint with the Colorado Rockies, short stint with the Chicago Cubs. 2004, he was with the St. Louis Cardinals. 2005, he was with the Yankees. 06, he was with the Reds and back with the Cubs. But man, Tony Womack was just like He was a dude, man. He was so much fun to watch.
And I think one of the reasons why he stands out most in our brains is like if you look at his two best seasons by WAR, I just want to make sure I get the numbers right on this. Yeah, his two best seasons by WAR were with 2001 with the Arizona Diamondbacks. What happened to the Arizona Diamondbacks that year?
Yeah.
Won the World Series.
World Series champion.
And his second best was his age 34 season. You don't see this very often. With the St. Louis Cardinals, he was worth 3.3 WAR with the Cardinals in 2004. What happened to the Cardinals that year? Made it to the World Series. Batted 307 that season, had 26 stolen bases, played 145 games for them, only 5 homers. But one of my favorite things about him is you look back at this. You mentioned that 72 steal season in 1999. He only struck out 68 times. The man had more steals than stolen bases.
That is amazing.
Like, I bet there's going to be some seasons in which Chandler Simpson does that, but that's like rare.
That's crazy.
That just doesn't happen. The man put the ball in play and then was happy to get to first base and run briskly to second. Or in 2000, he led the National League in triples with 14. So if he could get it in the gaps, the man was going. But yeah, the fact that he was the starting shortstop, for that D-backs team is notable. The fact that he shifted to second base with that Cardinals team. Again, like he was just, maybe there was something to be said about winning teams around Tony Womack,
Tony Womack, by the way, everybody remembers, obviously the walk-off hit of Luis Gonzalez against Mariano Rivera in the 2001 World Series to win that World Series in Game 7. But Tony Womack hit the game-tying double before that. And that really was, kind of what made Luis Gonzalez's moment possible. The double was, according to the Wall Street Journal, this is back in 2006, they ranked it as the most significant clutch hit in baseball history, which, didn't Luis Gonzalez win a World Series like immediately after that with a base hit? But still, that's pretty cool.
Man, that I would love to. Obviously, like win probability added. There's an easy way of just doing this analytically.
Yeah,
but Bill Mazeroski.
Yeah,
Joe
Carter.
Joe Carter.
The walk-off home run in the World Series. Yeah.
There's so many. Freddie Freeman walk-off grand slam just last year.
There's a lot. Well, this was 2006, so it like some.
No, I know
everything except for Freddie for
play.
Yeah. Little, I don't know. But Tony Womack, we remember and salute you. And that'll do it for this week's episode of the Show Before the Show. This was fun. If you have trade deadline questions, again, feel free, get in touch. podcast@milb.com. And we'll be back with you next week. For Sam Dykstra, Benjamin Hill, my name is Tyler Mon. We'll catch you then.